You are staring into the refrigerator at midnight. Nothing looks appealing. Your eyes scan past the leftover chicken, the mild cheese, and the normal snacks. Then you see it. You grab the jar of extra sour pickles, the bottle of extreme hot sauce, or the ice cold, violently fizzy soda. Why does your mind demand an absolute sensory assault just to feel satisfied? This is not a random or strange eating habit. Your nervous system is actually executing a highly calculated neurochemical rescue mission. Is it possible that your late night food cravings are a brilliant form of unconscious self medication? Most people eat simply to satisfy physical hunger. You eat to wake up your mind. For a neurotypical person, food is a source of calories and pleasant flavors. For you, food is often an intense sensory regulation tool. Your brain is constantly negotiating a world that feels either incredibly overwhelming or completely understimulating. When the boredom hits, your nervous system experiences a literal physical drop in internal alertness. Have you ever felt a sudden, heavy fatigue wash over you the moment you try to focus on a boring task? When this standby mode hits, you do not need more willpower. You need a neural spark. Your brain understands this delicate neurochemical balance perfectly. It sends an urgent, demanding signal to your appetite, craving something intense, shocking, or even slightly painful. You do not want a heavy meal. You want a sharp physical sensation that forces your nervous system to fully wake up. This is why you walk past the balanced foods and hunt for sensory extremes. Why does the ADHD brain require such extreme levels of stimulation just to stay awake? This flat mental state is a core part of the neurodivergent experience. Dr. Lucy Jane Miller, a clinical researcher at the Star Institute, has studied these specific neurological patterns extensively. Her research into sensory processing differences shows that many individuals with ADHD are natural sensory seekers. Sensory seeking means your nervous system has a much higher neurological threshold for sensory input. Normal, everyday stimuli simply fail to register or clear the gate in your brain's processing centers. Because the volume of the world is turned down, your mind remains in a chronic state of deep underarousal. How do you wake up a sleeping brain when you cannot find any natural mental energy? You seek out a biological volume dial. In sensory-seeking individuals, the brain is constantly starving for external or internal input. If the room is quiet, your nervous system starts to drift away. You might find yourself fidgeting with items, tapping your feet, or pacing around the empty room. But when basic physical movement is not enough, your brain turns to taste and texture. The mouth is one of the most highly sensitive sensory zones in the entire human body. By placing an intense sensory trigger on your tongue, you send a massive jolt of electrical signals straight to your brain stem. Does your intense craving for extreme foods suddenly make perfect sense? This brings us to the core engine of your focus, the dopamine pathway. Dr. Nora Volkow, director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, conducted groundbreaking brain imaging studies on the neurobiology of ADHD. Using advanced positron emission tomography scans, which are specialized medical images that show brain activity, her team mapped the dopamine pathways of the human brain. They discovered that individuals with ADHD have significantly fewer dopamine receptors in their reward centers. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter, or chemical messenger, responsible for feeling satisfaction, motivation, and sustained attention. This deficiency sits primarily in the nucleus accumbens, the area responsible for processing rewards. Because your baseline dopamine level is naturally lower, your brain is always on the hunt for a quick chemical upgrade. Why does this deficiency make you crave such intense, shocking flavors? Without sufficient dopamine, your brain is in a state of chronic chemical hunger. It is constantly seeking out high salience experiences that force a sudden, dramatic release of this precious neurotransmitter. A normal sweet snack might give a tiny nudge to your dopamine levels, but your brain is looking for a massive surge. It wants something that demands immediate attention. It wants a flavor that absolutely cannot be ignored by your nervous system. This is why standard foods feel like white noise, while sour, spicy, and carbonated foods feel like an electric symphony. How does a simple spice bottle turn into a powerful cognitive tool? Spicy food is the ultimate chemical hack for a low dopamine brain. When you eat capsaicin, the active chemical compound found in chili peppers, your tongue does not actually taste physical heat. Instead, the capsaicin binds directly to your TRPV1 receptors. These are the specialized sensory receptors that detect painful heat and physical tissue damage. Your body truly believes your mouth is catching on fire. In response to this perceived emergency, your brain immediately activates its survival mechanisms. It floods your system with endorphins and dopamine to block the pain and calm your nervous system down. This creates a rapid, natural rush of pleasure and absolute mental clarity. Are you actually eating spicy food to give your brain a safe, edible shot of pure adrenaline? This response is known to researchers as benign masochism. Benign masochism means your brain enjoys the thrill of a threat without any real physical danger. The sudden rush of natural endorphins acts like an immediate cognitive reset button. It clears the thick mental static, sharpens your focus, and leaves you feeling strangely calm. For a few minutes, the constant background chatter in your mind falls completely silent. You are fully present, anchored tightly by the burning heat in your mouth. This is not just a preference for spicy salsa. It is a biological strategy to find peace in a chaotic mind. Do you find yourself adding hot sauce to almost everything you eat? Sour foods operate on a very similar neuroregulatory level. When you bite into a sour lemon or a sharp piece of candy, the citric acid triggers an immediate, massive physical reaction. Your salivary glands contract instantly. Your facial muscles tighten up. This intense burst of localized physical feedback acts as a sharp shock to your central nervous system. It forces your brain to snap back into the present moment by activating multiple cranial nerves at once. It is a physical reset button for a drifting mind. Do you use sour flavors to break through the thick mental fog of executive dysfunction? The sheer shock of a sour flavor forces your attention to narrow down. In psychological terms, this is an immediate sensory orienting response, which is your brain's automated way of focusing on a sudden change. Your brain is forced to stop thinking about its internal distractions and focus entirely on the physical sensation in your mouth. The intense acidity stimulates the release of acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a vital neurotransmitter critical for cognitive attention, learning, and working memory. It is the ultimate cognitive jumpstart for a stalled mind. When you feel stuck in a state of mental paralysis, a single sour candy can provide the exact sensory jolt needed to break the freeze. Why does such a simple taste have so much power over your focus? Then, there is the intense craving for carbonation. Many people with ADHD do not just like fizzy drinks. They crave the violent, burning bite of heavily carbonated water. Dr. Charles Spence, an experimental psychologist at Oxford University, has studied how our human senses interact during eating. His research shows that the physical popping of carbon dioxide bubbles on the tongue is not just a texture. It actively stimulates the trigeminal nerve. The trigeminal nerve is the massive, critical nerve network responsible for sending sensory sensations from your face and jaw straight to your skull. This stimulation sends a rapid, high-frequency stream of tactile data directly to your brain. It feels like a spark of static electricity waking up your neural pathways. Why settle for still water when your brain can enjoy a sparkling, tactile light show? This tactile bite is often referred to by researchers as oral somatosensation. Oral somatosensation is a scientific term for a form of physical touch that happens entirely inside your mouth. For an ADHD brain, still water can feel incredibly boring, almost like drinking empty air. But carbonation turns a simple drink into an interactive experience. Each bubble popping against your tongue is a tiny, microscopic physical impact. This constant tactile feedback keeps your brain's sensory systems fully engaged while you perform other tasks. It acts as a passive source of stimulation, allowing your executive centers to focus on your work instead of looking for external distractions. Have you ever noticed that you drink far more water when it is carbonated? So let's walk through what happens inside your brain during a typical afternoon slump. You are sitting at your desk, trying to finish a massive, tedious project. Your executive functions, the brain systems that help you plan and execute tasks, are completely stalled and frozen in a state of painful cognitive fatigue. Your mind is spinning, desperately looking for any escape route from the boredom. You walk to the kitchen, bypass the plain crackers, and grab the spiciest potato chips in the cabinet. Within seconds of the first bite, your tongue burns, your eyes begin watering, and your brain suddenly clears. You return to your desk and find yourself working with renewed energy. Your food was not a distraction from your work. It was the exact chemical fuel you needed to start your engine. Think about how much energy you waste trying to force yourself to focus. You sit there, staring at the screen, feeling guilty, lazy, and exhausted. But the moment you introduce an intense flavor, the internal struggle ends. Your brain gets the chemical hit it was begging for, and the resistance melts away completely. This is not a lack of discipline. It is a biological reality. Your nervous system simply requires a different set of keys to unlock its hidden potential. When you use taste to stimulate your mind, you are working with your biology instead of fighting against it. Why do we spend so much time trying to fit our brains into a mold that was never designed for us? This reveals a profound, counterintuitive truth about your neurodiversity. ADHD is not an attention deficit. It is an attention regulation deficit. Your brain is not broken. It is simply wired to require a much higher level of sensory engagement to function properly. The urge to eat sour, spicy, or carbonated foods is not a sign of poor self-control or bad habits. It is an intuitive, self-directed form of cognitive therapy. You are using sensory-rich foods to actively balance your neurochemistry. Could your kitchen cabinet actually be your most valuable, accessible sensory tool? In our modern, highly sterile world, you are constantly expected to sit perfectly still and focus in quiet rooms. This environment is built for brains that run on a standard, steady neurochemical cycle. For your brain, this quiet structure feels like an empty sensory deprivation chamber. When you are denied natural sources of stimulation, your biology takes over to protect you from stalling. By understanding that your cravings are actually regulatory signals, you can stop judging your relationship with food. You do not need to feel guilty for needing a little extra spice to get through the day. Your brain simply knows exactly what it needs to survive and thrive. So, the next time you find yourself staring into the refrigerator at midnight, look at those intense flavors with a new sense of appreciation. Your brain is not failing you. It is merely seeking a spark. It is executing a beautiful, instinctive plan to keep your mind alive, alert, and fully awake. You are not just looking for a random midnight snack. You are looking for a brilliant way to bring your world back into focus.